Testing. 1, 2, 3. Shit. Well, that happens, doesn't it? Thank you very much. Um, I guess I'll go backwards. All right. Thank you there. Is Mafa? Is Mofa? Is Mufa? Um, so third pillarisms. Oof. Exploration, bards. Sorry about there being no sound. Um, it, bards are have the ability to dream and encourage others to build those dreams. And I think those dreams being built and in an urban area are great places for us to explore. So in the ancient past, maybe there are mazes and tunnels and crypts that are celebrations of the ancients. There may be a city that is built in and around a location that is normally normally no one would build in. And I'm thinking of Venice, Italy, is a stereotypically as a good example of a place where people shouldn't live there, but the passion and the artistry is taken to such a level that people don't even think about why they are there. Practically the Leaning Tower of Pisa, practically that place, that building should have been knocked down a long time ago, but it's a representation of something, and bards can give bards can give words and feeling and meaning to things that the rest of the population would just rather not deal with. So what happens at the end result? We need to go out of our way to save this tower that's been built on this soft ground, and so it becomes a monument of sorts. Same thing with the city of Venice, where there's canals and the city is sinking into the ground, and they're using more and more technology to keep the buildings up and keep them from rotting away. And then, but yet now we have a city of canals and bridges, and I don't know what they're called, the boatmen who sing to the people who rent them out and have like romantic trysts and all that kind of business. It is You can go pretty far, even with a current thing where there are construction sites. The gondola, thank you there, dead man. The gondolas, these individuals who are able to navigate these pathways, and of course, you guys know me. I'm all about the cinematic environs. One's just on Drive Through RPG. The print on demand versions coming pretty soon. Is it's cool to have yourself some battles or something in an urban area or what have you. Even cooler if those locations have like a mechanical effect in your world. You're having a running battle where you're running across bridges and catwalks, and there are passersby and running across. Maybe there's a number of boats and gondolas like tied to a pier, and you have to run, jump, and swing and or swim because you're having these battles on top of these boats that are like unstable. Maybe there's tentacles reaching out of the ground or something. So you could have a lot of places using heights and spaces and things in an urban area. Construction sites, probably as these monuments are being built, one on top of the other, the next generation building and tearing down one thing to build another monument to someone's greatness somewhere else. Construction sites make great places to have battles and things. Lots of debris around to watch out for, cover, heights. Again, the running, jumping, swinging, falling, being knocked down, improvised weaponry everywhere of any number of like representing any number of dangers, from very large pieces of stone or marble or whatever to lots of tools being used as improvised martial weapons and things. So I think that when it comes to the exploration and the bards also, we've talked on this channel quite a bit about using crowds, mobs, people, uh, unnamed individuals packed in large numbers together becomes its own hazard, right? For good or bad. And bards can really turn the volume up on that kind of thing where for example, uh, PCs need to chase after someone who happens to be very charismatic. They're a bard. They run through the city. They bump into a crowd of people. They say a few words and they move on. Suddenly, the player characters get there, and of course, they're annoyed because someone pushed through their crowd. And they look at the player characters. Now, statistically speaking, most zero level people, non-combatants, is it really a problem for your general, even first level character to push through them? No, not at all. But the consequences of doing such a thing might have long lasting, if not immediate effects, right? Like, sure, could the barbarian punch one of them in the face and and keep on moving on? Of course. But maybe punching the wrong person in the face might create even further problems. Those individuals might scream out for guards, or describe who they are, or hold a grudge, or represent individuals that are very important into the society, or just become a nuisance by other people gathering together when they see the violence that you've done to these individuals. So maybe it might be more important to circumnavigate a large crowd, or your face in your group, your own character with the higher charisma and skills in persuasion or even performance or deception kind of like helps them, it helps the big burly ones navigate through um, a crowd of people. And of course, crowds, uh, again, like I was saying, for good or bad, they can be great cover for your illicit activities like pickpocketing, or hiding and disguising yourself. We've seen this plenty of times where the protagonist or antagonist gets ready to go into a crowd, and they snatch down a scarf or a cap or a cloak or something and cover themselves, and then start to move along with the crowd, maybe in a parade, or watching a performance, or they're gathered just gossiping, or they're in a marketplace for whatever reason why they're gathered together. They could be waiting for a grand speech from a noble. They could be poorer and waiting for someone to drop off um, food or grain or water or something, and mixing in with the crowd. And in that works both ways, right? So if it's an antagonist and PCs are going after some kind of adversary, they could hide in there. But of course, the PCs can hide in a crowd as well, especially if there's going to be your favorite. Hey, it's the weekend. They're going to have some executions, and everyone hides in the crowd. And then I don't know, like you, maybe there's a slow mo where the Assassin's Creed characters come through the crowd and save one of their own from being executed in the open square or something like that. So you can have a lot of fun with crowds. Now, crowds also, like offending a crowd, they can gather together and become more of a hazard to navigate through simply by being annoyed as they start, yelling out obscenities, and then maybe even trying to grab onto an individual to help out the authorities, or they very easily point out one or more individuals in the crowd because they are disruptive. Um, Although someone could very easily say or do something that causes the crowd to hide you, like because maybe you appeal to their sense of urgency. Maybe you are able to say or repeat a chant because they're gathering for some political rally, and they're like, "Yeah," or maybe you give promises of money or favors or something if they were to do this one thing for you, or you appeal to their nature, whether it is um, I'm being, I'm just a lowly person and I'm being taken advantage of by a larger crowd, or those are criminals and we are a lawful society. Please stop those criminals because they're coming after me, or any number of things as well. Also with using like deception and or performance. Someone could hide as, if you cloak yourself literally or figuratively in the garb of something like a guard or a priest or someone else of authority. People might, hey, listen, I'm part of the city guard, but I'm on my own. I'm going to get reinforcements. I need you to help me stop them. Just stop them for a short amount of time, and then, of course, as you're being chased, or maybe the PCs are giving chase, they end up getting stopped. But mobs also act as a meat shields as well, so that can be a thing. Now, when it comes to performance, because with bardic performance, the typical like, hey, let's make music and such. For me, bards are artists, and so when it comes to like dance or the practice of martial arts moves, we see people in the park doing like Tai Chi, or going to festivals where you see people like the thumbnail where there's like fire breathers and they're doing dances with flaming spears and rods and whatnot. Um, uh, Ballet, hip hop dancing. There's poetry and uh, heck, even art like a painting, even doing it live, or the painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and whatnot. That I think the idea of charisma and performance and artistry isn't is very difficult. It's somewhat hand waved in most role playing games, but I could see it being a thing where um, a bard might be recognized for their performance in an urban setting and honored for it in such a way that they can garner some kind of benefit from it. So, for an example, in our modern day, someone famous for being part of artistry, whether they are famous singer, dancer, musician, actor, heck, just being a model, being someone that's handsome or beautiful or whatnot, uh, an individual who has carved their own body by lifting weights and exercising. There's lots of sports figures. So the Olympics is something that has been brought into the modern day. That was something from an ancient time. Those individuals would, while they may not even be performing now, their performances have influenced the public to get them to do other things. Like someone very famous, people might gather around them, and that might become its own hazard as gaggles of people and sycophants and fans and whatnot gather around them. Or maybe they can ask of people favors that normally you and I would never be able to ask the public to do, right? Someone famous enough could say, like, guys, thank you so much. But there's people bothering me. If you don't mind, could you just not let them know where I've gone? I'm going to slip through the back door. And they're like, yeah, okay, because that's my favorite person. And then the PCs come along and everyone's like, I have no idea. They went to the West. I don't know what you're talking about. And everyone's like, yeah, get out of my way. And of course, the barbarian punches someone in the nose, and they scream and get the heck up out of there because there's blood spilling everywhere. Right. So those are possibilities. Also, uh, people might be inspired by having had listened to a great speech by by a bard about getting people together to rebel against the atrocities committed by the Council of Seven or something. And then when they see that person again, they're like, I listened to your speech, man. Dude, that was awesome. Or there might be a criminal element that's like, I saw you perform. You might want to. I've got a club and a stage. I'd like you to perform on that stage. And you're just like, can't talk right now, but I'd really like a place to stay and some cover. And you're like, yeah, okay, all right. I'll make sure the city guard passes by. Don't you worry. So the long lasting things could be very, very ephemeral, just because art itself is so subjective. It's very difficult to even put that into a role playing game. But yes, absolutely, those are possibilities. Now, when it comes to other types of exploration beyond people, it's also because of the performative nature of Bards, how the PCs navigate an urban setting with lots of people is very important. For example, player characters may need to learn to accommodate themselves based on social restrictions. So, for example, the clothing that they wear, the words they say, the locations they go to. Sure, the local church doors may never be locked, but when the place is very quiet and they expect people to have some kind of honor, and you start running around with weaponry screaming at the top of your lungs while people are inside praying, and there's like choirs going on, and there are parishioners who are sweeping up. Of course I'm thinking stereotypically of the giant Catholic cathedrals as an example, or running. How dare you just have a running battle through a mosque when people are, praying to Allah or something like that. Sure, the doors aren't locked and you have the free will to come in and out, but your behavior is going to say a lot about your ability to navigate such places. And of course, there's the consequences of doing a thing. Yeah, you could easily run through and chase down your enemy and stab them in the throat, but people are going to react to that, and therefore your access to navigate the city might defer, or there might be specific locations you cannot get to based upon your level of adherence to the social order. Hey, rangers and druids, did you bother washing your hands and feet before you walked in here? Because you're probably got some dirt underneath your fingernails, and hadn't even thought about it. Might throw some barbarians in there too, with a couple of bird nests down and a really thick beard, or young lady caked in mud or something. It's like, what? This is my outfit. I don't get it. Shower. What does that mean? Soap? I don't understand what you're saying. I hear your words, but they don't make any sense. So, also the idea of having, even architecture itself is an artistic expression. So you could have a lot of fun with like these grand cities. We already talked earlier this week about how bards are bards are dreams made manifest in many ways, because they can get people really riled up with their passion to build things. So you can have a lot of fun with these towering cities, lots of catwalks, bridges, um, e- mechanical elevators, and skyways, and bordering on the neo Renaissance Victorian era. Um, Ornithopters and airships and um, oh, balloons and things in a city, and then mix in your adversaries in and around these kind of locations where you're having your big bad is on a cable car, and the PCs are want to slide down the cable car lane, cables or something like that, ropes or whatever, and to go after the bad guy. And they start trying to punch the bad guys in the throat as everyone's dangling off of the top of and on the inside and the outside of a cable car as it moves across the city, and people are pointing up at from their catwalks and balconies and whatnot, because there's pillars everywhere, in the shape, carved in the shape of the gods and or great heroes or something. The idea of Atlas holding the world, the globe on his back, but there's like these plates almost with cities on them or small locations, whatnot. I'm thinking of the Gothic architecture that's been portrayed a lot in the various Batman series, animated shows, movies, television, graphic novels, comic books, and whatnot, where you could have lots of Gothic architecture, gargoyles dangling off the edge of buildings and whatnot. So, in PCs, using lots of tight spaces, open spaces, lots of heights. places to hide, shadows and whatnot. Also, some other hazards we really don't think about too often, but could be very important in really like developing your setting when it comes to exploration is using things other than visual hazards, right? So, or hazards by touch. So, what I mean is like there could be a parade or performance where it's very loud. Well, if it's very loud, you can't communicate. You can't hear things. You could be maybe you could be surprised by an enemy who tries to sneak up on you because other than being able to look around, you can't hear them sneak up on you. So sound, maybe you try to charm the ogre, but then the band starts playing up. So sure, you've charmed the ogre, but you can't give them any instructions because they can't hear you. Um, being in a crowd or a place where there's like a very well tended garden or those hedge mazes or something of that nature, you can't if you can't see your allies, then and you have a spell like effect that requires you to see your target, then maybe it's very difficult to spot them in a place where there's tapestries or banners being swung through the air because of a political rally or a festival of some sort that's being sponsored by or encouraged by the Bards or something. There's also the idea of not just sound but sense, maybe a thing. The foods being cooked in a marketplace, the scent of anything from um, oh, what am I thinking of? Incense. Woo, wow. The idea of perfumes and incense being sprayed for some reason, or flowers have been gathered because of a particular special occasion, and so therefore it could throw off dogs that are very good at using their scent and whatnot. So you can play with a lot of things where maybe there's a special occasion where they use bronzed mirrors that reflect a lot of light, so it could be difficult. Or people are getting together a day or two before a great festival, or a celebration or a special performance and whatnot. So people have on their rooftops, they've washed their sheets and towels and clothing, and that in itself could be a hazard when trying to do a rooftop run, but you're trying to get around tapestries that have been hung up to dry in the wind and whatnot. So you we can have a lot of fun with layering bards and their agenda on top of the physical the the physical parts of a city. Now, as you start to go on, um, start to go a little deeper and darker into things, uh, bards can represent those people who are causing rebellions, and they can cause mobs to start to get angry and start to burn and destroy things. So angry mob could start creating hazards that weren't there before, such as lighting places on fire, or knocking over those monuments, or attacking perceived, letting out their rage and aggression and attacking perceived enemies in the streets. The PCs might be viewed as those individuals, or heck, just running through an angry mob in the first place might make you a victim, if for no other reason than a mob becomes its own mindless aggression. So, yes, the barbarian could try to run through an angry mob and punch somebody in the face, but that might just make the angry mob even more pissed off. And sure, you could start hacking and slashing at the mob, but now they've got a great enemy and they might start tracking you down. Also, the tumbling over of a monument or destruction of a building or something might create some of those hazards that fall right in front of people. As of course, anything from destroying that same great bazaar where you went there, you smelled all the great foods and you heard people dancing, and there were jugglers and comedians and acrobats, and now all of a sudden the place is being ripped down and there's people painting on the walls, obscene images, or they want to take down the the draconian government of the Council of Seven, and so they're laying down the law. And of course, city guards come in. They start trying to we see elements of this today when it comes to angry protests, where each side is trying to elicit a reaction from the other side, and it's very difficult to keep your passions in check when everybody's being motivated and their adrenaline gets high, and everyone's like heated to want to just express themselves to the point where they don't even know what they're trying to express, but they have to express it in physical violence. And so bards kind of are the progenitors of that. They say things, they do things. They are the face of movements of chaos and law. And maybe even the player characters might be involved in a situation where they have to protect a person who is a performer. They are publicly speaking or demonstrating or acting out in some kind of way. And that if they are harmed, the people can get triggered and cause a thing, right? Like hazards could be made by people dumping their furniture into the streets to make barriers to keep the city guard from walking through their neighborhoods, or the city guard starts bringing out tower shields and they start putting up barriers that prevent the PCs. Now they have to start climbing in and around these barriers and climbing over them, and of course climbing over them is a violation, so maybe they have to start running through rooftops, or moving through dark alleys, or going up and down inside of buildings and moving through people's private homes to go from place to place. Lastly, as because of the arts, we've seen in like Greek and Roman mythology, when it comes to the gods and the more arcane stuff, that human beings might be so beautiful, their voices might be so angelic, their artistry might be so great, that even those things, the gods themselves, the divinities, might, with just a touch, bring those things to life, or want to capture or punish the human beings that would dare be more beautiful or sound more angelic, or to build to carve a statue of the gods that's so lifelike that they bring it to life. And so now you can even make those kind of things. The god of storms that's pissed off at the human beings for daring to speak up against them. And what happened? Maybe a bard sang a song or did a performance or something that angered the gods and whatnot. So you could even have a situation where the player characters are navigating a particular region, and the acts of those who can speak for the public or dream for the public are causing more and more problems, or heck, even hurrying up and getting that bard to get up on the top of the cliffside to alleviate the storm that's been ravaging the area in the first place. So on one time, the PCs might be fighting off what do they call it? I'm gonna butcher the name, the Sahogian, that are coming out of the ocean and the sea with giant tentacles. And at the other time, they're like, could you please make the enchantment, sing to the gods, or praise them to keep the storm god from, Neptune plus from ravaging this oceanside city, because it's pretty dangerous trying to fight these bad guys and tentacle creatures, and the torrential rains and white-capped waves spilling over, and trying to knock the PCs off of the cliffside or something. So you could set up a win condition, air quotes win condition, by having a need to do a performance, or say words of attrition, or enact a ritual, or getting the population to all do something to create a bane or placate a divine thing. I am lastly, I'll end with, it is not my intention to offend anyone's religious beliefs, but this is a tabletop RPG channel, and this is a place where we do gather together some of our most creative energies, and a lot of that comes from our own real life, uh, real world histories. Now, there is the idea of marking the doors so that the firstborn are not taken by the words of a god. And so, using something like that, where a bard spreads the word that the god of life and death is going to come to town, and everyone must take a copper coin that has sat in the earth of a cemetery over a loved one. You take that coin and you nail it into a door frame, and if you nail it into a door frame, that will be the coin that would be given to, you know, Karen, the boatman, to not take, you know, the elderly and the sick and the young from your household or something like that. So that could also be a a hazard where the PCs might not be able to stay inside to avoid this hazard, but there's other people who are. And the hazards outside on the street with like undead and spirits and banshees and whatnot, and wraiths and wights running around, WIGHT, running around. The PCs might be able to get find shelter inside, you know, protected behind a coin, but there's dangers on the outside. And so you have these monsters rolling around and running around in the streets, and the PCs are being attacked, and you could have a running battle, but there's also a safe haven. There is the environment. There's the exploration of the environment, the discovery of a panacea to allow them, maybe they can't fight off an army of the undead that's brought to the city because of the god of the boatman of, you know, Karen or whatever, god of life and death, but there is a way to navigate through a danger. And so the exploration is just a matter, can also be a reward in and of itself, by finding mistletoe, by discovering a passage underneath the city, and even finding a place where the player characters themselves are protected, whether it is a hidden grove, or a blessed location, or standing in the shadow of a great hero that actually has an arcane protection in and of itself that keeps evil at bay while the PCs are navigating a particular location. I'm bringing up urban locations quite a bit, but the same works for the wilderness, right? Where the PCs might find an oasis that helps not just get for them food and water and shelter, but it might be something arcane in it. So anyway, guys, going to have to get out of here. Sorry about the no sound. Thank you very much, Ismafa. I sometimes will mute myself out, and I forget that that there is a function where I can start the show live and it'll automatically unmute on me. But I was unable to do that, so that was my own fault. It wasn't anything that was plugged in or out. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to this talking head. You guys have a great one. By the way, just as a side note, unfortunately for the channel, I have become quite a bit busy, and I'm normally busy anyway, but I am involved in some various outside writing projects. But hopefully you guys will bear with me when I'm really able to bring to light what those writing projects are. And those writing projects are for other people, not just myself, while of course I'm always trying to come up with new ideas and writing and things like that, but I often don't bring them up on the channel. But soon, fingers crossed, very soon we'll be able to talk about those things. So I would love to do that, share the creative process with you guys. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being with RPG with DBJ. I am your host, and all of you make me look brilliant. Anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for participating in the show. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I will see thee tomorrow on Future Friday.